Welcome back, everyone. We're doing another episode of Indie Reads Aloud. I love this program so much. It allows me to meet new authors. It also allows me to celebrate new writing. And today I have a new to me author on the program. Her name is Carla Stockton, and she is from New York. Welcome, Carla.
Thank you, Diana. It's nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. I love talking with you in the green room. I just think you're a fascinating human, and I'm
Oh, thank you.
really looking forward to hearing a little bit about your book. But before we get into that, I want to let everybody know a little bit about you. You are a late blooming author. You
I am.
decided to take up writing full time and toward the goal of writing this book in the latter part of your life. What was it that held you back from doing this for so long?
Well, I was the oldest of seven children.
That's a
So,
lot.
and my mother had a fairly catastrophic accident when we were very young, and I had a lot of responsibility. And so I was deterred in that way. And then I got interested in high school in theater, and I thought, oh, I'm going to be an actor. So I sort of pursued that, but I wasn't really all that talented. And then I went back to school thinking that I would pursue writing, but I didn't trust myself because I had not
Hmm.
built up any resources within myself at that point. So instead of just trusting myself to barrel forward on my own, I got married. And then that led to children, and that changes your life. And
Now, just so that we can set the record straight, marriage and children is not a regret,
no, no,
but it
absolutely
is a
not.
different path,
It's a
right?
different, that's it. That's the point, is that
Yeah,
it's the old poem, two paths in the wood diverged, and which one do you take?
right.
And sometimes you take the one less traveled, and when you take, sometimes you take the one more traveled, and either way, your life is what it is. And I'm
And
grateful,
sometimes the two paths rejoin later down the road.
which is exactly what's happened to me.
Yeah.
Eventually they do. And that's been the amazing thing. I mean, I'm almost 80 years old now, and I will say that I see more and more the paths rejoining with,
Mm,
with one another.
that's
And
fantastic. How
and
do
no,
your,
there is no regret.
of course. I need to say that out loud because I'm in a similar situation.
Uh,
So, um, but I also wanted to say that it's important that we do trust ourselves to take that leap and to really allow ourselves to give ourselves permission to do the writing thing because it's not a normal life choice.
it's not, and if you grew up in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and you were a
Mm.
woman,
Hmm.
consider that I couldn't have a bank account in my name. I couldn't have a
Exactly.
credit card in my name. I was not encouraged. I remember my high school um, guidance counselor telling me I should study secretarial work, which would have
Yeah,
been absolutely catastrophic for me. I'm absolutely the
I
worst kind of person for secretarial. But he said either that or a minister. I don't know. That neither one of them seemed me.
right. Yeah, yeah. No, I spent 35 years being a secretary because it paid the bills and I was able to raise my son and I wrote on the weekends and at nights. So I never let that go and then I slowly transitioned. So I definitely I hear that voice because I was told
I
the same thing.
recognize it in you. Yep,
Yeah, I was told the same thing. Do what's safe,
that's right.
and then once you get safe, then you can go and take some risks. And now I kind of like taking risks. It's a little more
I do
fun.
too. I do too.
Yeah.
Some days more than others,
Aha.
but yeah, I do. And we also, I think we were much more in my generation, especially. I'm enough older than you that
Hmm.
we're even more likely to trust men to take the lead, right? So if
Sure,
if
because
you're
that's
told
what we were trained to do.
that we weren't raised to be self-sufficient,
Exactly.
um you're going to be, you have to have somebody who will pay the bills and take care of things. And it was incumbent on us to trust that when they said, oh, we'll get settled in and I'll give you time to write. You'll have plenty of time to write. We believed them.
Sure. Sure. Well, we had nothing in our lives to disprove that, you know.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's talk about the book. Too Much of Nothing: Notes on Feminism, Identity, and Womanhood. This is a memoir.
It
This is
is.
about you and about
It is.
your life and your
It is.
path and
Yes.
your journey. What was the hardest? Let me rephrase that. What was the piece in writing this book that made you hold back from publishing it for so long? Because this is a brand new book. This just came out less than a year ago. So I'm wondering, we can ask it one of two ways, right? Why did you wait? And the other way to ask it is, what was the thing that spurred you to do it?
Can I tell you an anecdote that
Absolutely.
might express it? I found out when I was 11 what my mother's story was, and I only found out because I read Leon Uris's Exodus. And all the voices that I had heard growing up in various languages around me about people dying and people being taken and people being shipped away and all of this had never made sense, but nobody ever talked about it. And then I read that book and I was 11 and I went to my mother and I said, why didn't you? I realized, oh my God, that's our family, my mother's
Mm-hmm.
family. And I went to her and I asked her why she never told me. And she said, I lived. It wasn't that interesting. It wasn't that important. And I think I took that in. I grew up, and it's the first few pages of the book. I grew up with this sense of all these people had died before I was born. What right did I have to live? And
Yeah.
what makes my story interesting? And it wasn't until I don't know, I was in my 70th year and I was thinking about what I'm going to begin to work on and I started to think about what what is interesting. And I realized I have a voice. It's a unique voice, but I don't have a unique story. I have a story that is a universal story, and it's just a matter of the voice that I put it in. And it might speak to somebody somewhere. It might speak to my granddaughters. It might speak to my daughters. It
Sure.
might, and if they're the only ones who benefit, that's great too. Or it might
Yeah.
speak to
Yeah.
others.
Well, and I am a firm believer that writing, no matter how we do it, fiction, nonfiction, memoir, self-help, poetry, essay, whatever it is, I believe that in pulling that courage out of ourselves to put it on the page, it then becomes a legacy. And we don't know who down the road after us will be inspired by that legacy. So I think it's important that everybody puts a piece of their story on the page
I agree.
in whatever
In whatever form.
in whatever form and through whatever storytelling vehicle they feel closest to. So
Exactly.
I absolutely applaud you for doing this. I think it's an awesome idea that you are pulling this out of yourself and putting it on the page. And I'm really excited to hear a little bit of your reading. So when you are ready, just imagine me sitting on the floor. You're in a comfortable chair. I'm sitting next to the fireplace, which is my favorite thing. And you're just reading out loud to me because I'm a recovering 6-year-old and I like it when people read out loud to me. So when
I'm still a recovering 6-year-old myself.
so when you are ready, please take the
Do I
microphone
do,
and read aloud.
shall I explain where I am or just read?
Your choice entirely.
So there are many episodes in the book. It's a series of vignettes, and I thought I would just read a little bit from a couple of the vignettes. And the background is probably less important than the words. In the beginning was our end. I once went out on a date with a man who had been married to the same woman for nearly 30 years. If I chose to enter an affair with him, he said, I would be the third woman with whom he had relations on the side. I probably should have been appalled. but I simply nodded in recognition. Long marriages are hard, and every person has to choose how to cope or how to accept that coping is not an option, that leaving is the only way to go on living. Before I left my marriage, I never thought I could do it. Pick up, walk away from this secure life I had been living more than half of my years, give away my rights to all that was in our 4-bedroom brick and wood cape and its 2-car garage. When I was married, singledom was a stigma, a curse. I knew of no precedents to guide me. People called me gutsy, and I wasn't really. At the time, I was rather simply broken. I had lost myself somewhere between I can be a good wife and mother and I should never have been born. I wanted more than what I had, but I was not entirely sure what that was. And the barriers were solidly placed so I could not ferret out my truth. I had that so-called Einstein's theory of insanity running through my head. When you keep on doing the same thing over and over, hoping they'll get better, and they don't, and you carry on, that's insane. There was nothing left unshattered inside me, and I was never going to be able to glue myself back together. Instead, I had to rip it all up and begin a new life. I went to New York and I had to look for a job. I left New Haven, where I had been living, and went to New York. I knew exactly where I wanted to live in the city. As a youngster in New York, I had lived in several apartments in various neighborhoods. After my grandmother's apartments in Queens, I moved in with 3 women my age in a swank building on 86th Street, Joe Namath's building. Joe Namath was then the Star Jets quarterback and a heartthrob ladies' man who never failed to smile at us in the elevator. But that didn't last long. I was there at the invitation of a coworker, a very mixed up young woman who found ever nastier ways to punish me for having introduced her to a man who got her pregnant and then abandoned her. I accepted her invitation because she was desperate for a 3rd roommate to offset the high rent cost and moreover, to have a mother figure she could dump on. Living with her was torture, but I benefited by realizing that I was altogether too codependent and needed to find friends who didn't need me. I also learned very quickly that the Upper East Side was not for me. The fake eyelashes and smile I wore all the time were exhausting. So I moved temporarily back to Queens, this time into my aunt's basement and up the street from my grandmother's. Then a friend who worked at Van Cleef and Arpels, who was a great dancing partner, invited me to share a small suite at the Marlin Hotel on 8th Street in Greenwich Village. The Marlton was a quiet hideout where queens, like my roommate, could be out without incurring the wrath of unforgiving tourists. Our arrangement was cozy and cramped. I wasn't there more than a few months. I got lucky. A fire gutted much of a building on 18th Street where another friend lived, and a damaged railroad apartment became available. I moved in with the mice and the cockroaches and spent 3 years bathing in the kitchen while the vermin held raucous parties under my refrigerator. My rent was less than $45 a month. When Richard and I became a couple, he had suggested I just move into his room at John Jay Hall. Not a perfect arrangement. We shared a room with his roommate, a classmate from his high school, still a virgin, terrified of what we might be doing behind our tightly closed door. I spent the entire spring semester unable to pee between the hours of 9 and 7 when that boy was in his bed. To go to the bathroom would have necessitated walking by him. The great advantage of our getting married that May was that we qualified for married student housing and we were able to go from a summer sublet on Riverside Drive to a fabulous 112th Street and Broadway apartment. I loved living in that neighborhood. It was diverse in every way. So no matter what I looked like on any given day, I was never out of place. I could be equally inconspicuous dressed up or dressed down. And whatever color or configuration my friends and family were, they blended in. I loved the anonymity of my street and the secure assurance that there were friends and neighbors all around me. When I was out on the sidewalks, I felt beautiful, in control, confident. I could be outspoken, flamboyantly social, or I could blend into the cityscape and disappear. There were people to chat with who knew how to avoid small talk and make conversation about subjects of import. And there were people who were more than happy to smile and nod and barely acknowledge my presence. Every sound, every sight, every smell of the neighborhood reinforced my knowledge that I had found a microcosm of the city I loved all my life, and I could not get enough. There was an electricity beneath my feet, over my head, in my heart, that gave me a burst of smiling buzz every waking moment of the day and night. When I slept, the street played a lullaby that assured me all right, all was right with the world. I was alive in an effervescent present where my past was behind me, and the looming question mark of my future was a blossoming surprise. Naturally, when I returned to New York in 2004, I expected to find what I had left behind when I was led into exile. I was wrong. I couldn't find a job. After a few long, fruitless searches, I found a Craigslist ad. We're seeking natural-born teachers, those who love New York City, revel in its history. We want to share, and who want to share it with others. If you qualify, we'll provide the training, the uniforms, including winter coats. We pay $25 an hour. $25 an hour was a lot of money at that moment. I was determined to get this job, whatever it was. My anxiety was immediately quieted by the man conducting the interview in the dark corner of the deserted bar. He was older than I, had a face full of straggly white hair, and a wet mouth that caused him to slurp when he spoke. He said he was assembling a staff of qualified sightseeing guides for a brand new company, and the work would be perfect for me. It was, to my amazement, a real job, even though he was not yet ready to give the company's name. It was a startup. Don't worry, he assured me, I'll train you. In the first months after I was hired at City Sites New York, I had the same feeling I had had as a neophyte teacher and drama director. I get paid to do this? Something was wrong in a world where being this happy could be called work. It was the end of summer already, which meant that the sun left the city each day early, and the movement of the air on the top of the bus was pure joy. When it rained, I laughed and kept on riding. I was on top of a bus, seeing New York from angles I hadn't even imagined before, learning every day something new because I couldn't stop reading, investigating, studying. My customers were multinational, so I got to speak German or French. Sometimes I even got through whole conversations in Spanish and Italian, and occasionally a halting but satisfying connection in Serbian or Croatian. My tips were hefty. My brain was exercised, and the running up and down the stairs on the bus kept me fit. Everything about this job was a novelty, a pleasure. I was making a lot of money because the company was new and understaffed, and we got to work 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. I was flush for the first time since I left home. I was also able to meet other people who were like me, mostly overeducated, underskilled, those who represented all age groups. I began to make what I believed to be real friendships. My first friendship was with a woman with a best-selling book. That's how she introduced herself to me. I'm Felicia. I have a best-selling book, Older Women, Younger Men. I was impressed. She actually published a book. We made plans to write a book together. Mandy was my other favorite person. Mandy, who was in those days still called by what would become her dead name, Stephen, was saving up for gender reassignment. All of that played out on the bus until it all ended. We were happy together. Mandy and I were friends. I thought there was never going to be an end of this happiness. But winter returned as I rounded the end of my first year on the bus, and it became clear that the end of the idyll was in sight. The same job that I loved so deeply at the beginning became the source of misery. The novelty wore off, and I was plumb exhausted. I realized with absolute certainty this was not a job I could do long term. It was, however, a job, and I had to protect myself from losing it. The man who had founded the new company was young and inexperienced, and he knew nothing about running a bus company. But he knew enough to keep us from having privileges. We were not allowed to go to the bathroom. We were not allowed to have a break room. There was no place to sit down. Dispatchers habitually filled the buses, so we could not sit even on the bus while we were touring. There was absolutely no relief. It all came to a head. One particularly stormy November night, I had a family from the UK who insisted on staying outside, though I knew there was a coach behind us that would have taken them on. They wanted to see the city, despite the heavy rain and the bitter cold, and so we stayed atop the bus. I was huddled in the back of the bus under my rain gear, shivering and offering commentary on what bits of the tour I could actually see. They were all way up front. The rain had turned torrential when I saw that they got a phone call. Suddenly they were all standing up, pacing back and forth, wailing. I made my way toward them, knowing something must be terribly wrong, wanting to help. I was so concentrated on their situation that I failed to see a street lamp headed toward my face. I did not duck in time. My glasses were smashed, my nose cracked, my eyes swelled. Things only got worse from there. The companion of the couple whose phone had rung told me that the call had come from a police person in the UK, informing them that their daughter had been killed in a car accident. I knew they needed to get off the bus immediately to get back to their hotel, to be anywhere but where they were at that moment. I tried to communicate with the driver, whose camera should have been capturing all the action, including my injury as it was going on. By law, he was supposed to stop the bus if people were walking around, and by rights, he should have stopped when I was whacked. But the camera was, as it often was in our case, not working. The PA system, designed as a communications from the top of the bus to the driver, was also out because of the storm. We were stranded on the swaying balcony, they keening, I bleeding. There was no way we could hold out until we came to the next stop. I instructed all 6 of them to join me in stomping on the floor, which I knew would get the driver's attention and possibly give him a headache. It took another 5 minutes before he finally jolted to a stop and stormed up the stairs to yell profanity at me. He never even looked at me or gave me a chance to explain, and the family exited the bus while he was throwing his tantrum. Understandably, they didn't leave a tip. The driver launched into a second tirade, upbraiding me for having failed to make a tip speech. I told him he was not my pimp, and I walked away. I got my nose to stop bleeding. I washed my swollen face, put my poor demolished glasses in my backpack, went back to work. 3 hours later, I found myself on the same driver's bus, and at that moment I knew it was time to go back to school and refine myself as a writer.
Thank you very much. Wow. Life, holy moly. I can't even imagine being whacked in the head while on a double-decker tool. That's insane.
And it really happened, all of it.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. See, this is why I love speaking with people from all walks of life, because you get little snippets of society that normally I wouldn't be privy to.
Right. Right.
I
mean,
love
there's a whole thing in this book about Mandy, who was undergoing gender reassignment, or was trying to go through that. And when I wrote it, that was before the trans thing was a big thing anywhere.
Sure.
And we just lived it, so
Yeah.
these are, and even when we lived it, we just lived it. And when I wrote it, I was just writing it. So it's interesting to see how these things play out.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that it sounds like your book is very much a harkening back to your mother's statement, which is I lived.
That's right. That's
And
exactly
I
what it
think
is.
that is probably the strongest proclamation we can make about how we go from day to day.
Exactly. Exactly.
So tell me, what's coming up next for you? I mean, I know this book is still new and you're promoting it and you're, involved with your
Trying to.
publisher and doing great things there. But so what are you thinking about the next project might be?
I'm actually trying to, there are a lot of distractions at the moment. I'm having some landlord difficulties,
Mm-hmm.
which is not unusual in New York. But since COVID, things have become difficult for tenants
Sure.
in the city. Um, in any case, I'm trying to completely focus. I've been doing the research and starting to write snippets of a novel. I thought I was going to write the story. I have this very interesting family background where my father's family are all descended from 17th century English and Dutch people who came to this continent at its
Okay.
beginning, and my
Okay.
mother who came in 1939. So I thought that's what I was going to write about. But then I don't know, I got into this story about a woman coming to New York in the 17th century. And it occurred to me that her story is very much the same story as all the immigrants coming here anytime. And I've been doing the research to try and reconstruct New York in the 17th century and
So
the
is this new project going to be creative nonfiction or is it just going to be fiction?
fiction. I hope.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And of course, you're working with the amazing Caroline
Caroline
Topperman
Topperman.
over at Mountain Ash Press.
I sure am. The
She's
most wonderful.
incredible. Her whole staff is amazing.
They
And
are.
I can't shout out enough about them. And
Her
I'm so
partner,
glad,
Andy Cumbo, too, we should shout
yes,
out.
Andy's wonderful. So I can't imagine what life would be like without being connected to people like this. So
There would be no book for me.
yeah, I mean,
And I wouldn't have confidence in myself as a writer.
yeah,
Despite what I got some good feedback as an M.F.A. student, but I must say that it was Caroline particularly and Andy who have made me feel like, okay, I can do this. I really
yeah,
can.
yeah. They're amazing over there.
They are.
So you're gonna write a novel. You're working on the research. When do you anticipate it might be coming out? Just to wet our whistle a little bit.
Um, what I'm hoping is that there will be a series of short pieces, nonfiction and fiction, that will precede it. And I'm figuring, based on the trajectory of this one, that it'll be in the next 2 years.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for coming on the program today.
Thank you. Thank you. I
I
really
have
appreciate it.
added too much of nothing to my TBR.
Good.
So,
And I will send you the copy.
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
No, I'm very grateful for this. This is a lovely opportunity and you're wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I hope you see tremendous success with this book.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.